Thank you, Srinivas. Mr. Srinivas comes from the department with which we have the maximum amount of discussion over the last 6 months. Because every time we go and say that Srinivas is not doing this, therefore we are not able to attract investment. So, of course, for the only reason that as part of this global investors meet, all of you, quite a lot of you had participated. We saw close to around 1,40,000 crores of investment coming in sectors which are a bit dependent on the mineral resources. Maybe you can add another give or take 1,000 crores here and there. But this is the rough figure, because if you, and you go back 2 years and you're talking about investments of around 2,50,000 crores which were committed in Global Invest GIM 2010. So what we have been doing from Udyog Mitra, of course, is that we are trying to be the single point of contact for investments, and we do a promotional role and also try to attract the players in the industry to come into Karnataka. Now, we do understand that there are a lot of, given the business cycle, given the availability of credit, given the company's expansion plans, a lot of stated productions or stated commitments by them may wait a couple of years, etc. But at the same time, if you look at it, the more we talk to producers, the more we have had discussions, there has always been a huge amount of interest in going up in the value chain, and manufacturing in the steel sector in Karnataka. Now, if you look at Karnataka, of course, if you look at the projected capacity, it's close to around, if you look at the Indian steel industry itself, you're talking about, given our growth rates, both existing and potential, we're talking about capacity up to 250 million tons by 2025. It could be like the greenhouse effect, the effect could be much faster. It's estimated, I think it could actually happen much earlier than that. Now, demand status also, you are talking about finished steel consumption, you're talking up to around 61.1, and of course current steel production of around 69.4. Recession, or not recession, of course, slower growth rates, of course, has shown that there's been a drop in steel demand over the last 1 year. Now, future product projections, including, I think the planning commission document, or is it that expert committee? I think it's the expert committee, yes. It talked about possible domestic demand of 113 million tons for steel by 2016. And, sorry. And the key issue, of course, is steel production is always going to be very much a function of the total GDP growth rate. It adds to it and is also affected by it. And we think that if you're going to have a targeted growth rate of 9%, then you're going to talk about steel consumption rate of at least 10%. So, ore requirement, I think I.A.S had given, or India had given me possibility is 10.2% CAGR for ore requirement if you're going to talk about 8.99% growth in steel. Now, if you look at Karnataka, if you look at the major producing areas, again you're talking about Bellary, Chitradurga, Tumkur, major areas where you're going to have steel, and of course cement production is mainly concentrated in Gulbarga, little bit in Bagalkot, little bit in Bijapur and Belgaum. Quality of ore is not so great. Little more of ore availability, I think, is in Chitradurga. Am I right or not? Chitradurga for cement, mineral, limestone. Little bit is available there also. But if you look at what I mentioned in the beginning also was that the industry, if you look at our FDI, Bangalore is high, huge amount, close to around 6%, but a lot of it going into the IT sector. And you're talking about manufacturing also, you look at it, 3% is iron ore and minerals, electronics, computer software contributes, I think, close to 63%. Gems and jewelry is around 12%, petroleum products is around 8%. And of course, chemical, pharma, etc. is talking about 2%. So the potential does exist. Question is how much of it is going to be tapped. The existing production or production of steel, I think, all given together close to around 21.48 million tons. So we were exporters, but given the additional capacity and projects which we had taken, I think there was a ban on export of iron ore a couple of years back, and then we moved on to the promotion, and a lot of companies came up and said that they have come up with integrated steel plants. The production potential is quite huge given in future. Now, we are trying to project Karnataka, in our policy itself, we are talking about Bellary, Koppal, Raichur as being the steel zone in Karnataka, and we wanted to develop the Suvarna Karnataka corridor, develop the Vada region, all of this around this area to basically promote manufacturing and steel production. I mean, focus on steel production in this region, and also possibly have a lot of parks which will actually attract downstream investments of the main product. To this effect, of course, again as part of the global investors meet, we thought that one of the major constraints everyone does talk about is availability of land. So we did talk about close to around 49,000 acres. We have, I mean, not 49. We have issued 49,000 acres of preliminary notification, and around 26,000 of acres is finally notified land. The only thing is, of course, the major requirement which I would like to bring to your notice, of course, is even in the after interaction with a large number of industries, the major demand always has been for land in and around Bangalore. Bangalore is the big city, and everybody who wants to do any kind of investment wants to live in Bangalore and do investment and his production 1 hour around Bangalore. So that is the major thing. So if you're talking about only the big integrated plants, like say in Bellary, or maybe you're talking about cement companies in Gulbarga, or something in to a smaller extent in Hubli Dharwad, where they're talking about small investments, but the bulk is always concentrated around these 3 areas of Bangalore, Ramnagaram, and to a certain extent up to Mandya, and then we go a little bit towards Tumkur and a little bit towards Kolar. That is the area around which everybody wants to locate. But we are trying to see if we can provide nodes, try to develop corridors to see we can push and get investments coming in areas which are in the steel, in the Suvarna Karnataka corridor, which is talking about an ancillary park in Bellary, or talking about development along the Bidar-Bellary line, which I think Gulbarga is a little iffy. We're talking about Tumkur. I think there is a lot of potential. Chitradurga, again we have got a huge amount of new R&D areas coming up, and of course there's a possibility along the Bangalore-Belgaum route. If you look at the steel investments which we have got interest over the last couple of years, you look at the companies. You got Uttam Galva, POSCO, ArcelorMittal, Bhushan. Surya has of course dropped out, but these are the big companies which are interested. Quite a lot of them have paid money for land acquisition. Land acquisition is moving forward, and of course POSCO, again it has run into a bit of problem with regard to the location of the project, and but the others, they are moving forward in terms of acquisition of land. Again, companies which signed MOUs with us this time in 2012, NMDC, Tata Steel, BMM, Kalyani, they are all looking at different locations again in North Karnataka. So we hope that this acts as a catalyst. Our interest is steel acts as a catalyst for growth in manufacturing in future, which is why we always have been trying to see how we can do it. And the second point, of course, is this whole conference also is structured around areas and companies. A lot of companies have actually started indicating interest. One is in beneficiation, another is in pelletization. Large number of small companies have come forward in this. I think you convert fines into pellets, right? You go in for or beneficiation and use it, and a lot of them can go in for onward production for the companies in future. So if you look at it, the total projects which we talk about beneficial, we talk about it, integrated steel plant itself is 99. That is interest. I think grounding will depend at large extent on their availability, their commitment in terms of how much they would like to do, go in for the projects, what is the time frame within which they are looking at, what is the demand, etc., etc. So we think that even if you can ground, we think that possibility exists to ground at least 30 to 40% of these projects in future over a period of time. Now, of course, current ore requirements, you've got 11, I mean, you're already touching around 27 million tons plus, I think, a little bit of imports, and if the downward investments happen over a period of time, then you're going to be talking at least around 40-45 million tons happening in future, which is what I think we have been requesting the Director of Mines and Geology to assist us and help us in getting additional ore for our projects, which can happen in future. But of course, that is subject to whatever constraints they do face in terms of judgments of various courts. Now, of course, you look at the prospects. I mean, Karnataka is rich in basically iron ore of different categories, and of course, The others are high value add, which are there, and of course limestone is another major mineral in our state. Again, both of which we have been trying to push for additional investment. And we think that there is a potential for investments to happen. The state government is committed to, at least wherever they have categorized, or wherever these companies are interested and have shown commitment, we are trying to ensure that we assist them to get projects quickly. The second, of course, the spin-off benefits of these are quite high. If you're talking about iron and steel projects, one is employment, both primary, secondary, second also on downstream industries which are going to happen because of these companies. Second hidden advantage, of course, is that, not hidden advantage, we get a lot of them producing power. I think it comes as a, quite a lot of these companies generate a huge amount of power. Our state is deficient in power, so definitely this adds to a large extent to the capacity, and that is going to be a huge requirement, because energy, a lot of companies demand not just power, quality power, assured supply. So these are the things which we actually get as a additional benefit when iron company or steel makers come on board very soon. We also know that there is requirements of water. Again, we have been talking to both the Water Resources Department to see how we can actually tie up the water requirement, both in terms of, I mean, companies in this sector, of course, we have had discussions with them, captive consumption, I mean, there should be some capacity so that in the summer months, they should be able to store adequate amount of water for their use, and they should be also able to tap adequate sources of water. There have been discussions, one on trying to see whether you can actually provide a single pipeline for transportation or for provision of water for large companies together, so that they get the benefits of, this can actually generate more benefits, and this is not a headache which a company has to look into. At the same time, allocations from the Water Resources Department is also being pursued to a large extent to see that it can be tied up at the earliest. And of course, these are some of the advantages we believe in Karnataka for iron and steel investors is raw material, downstream units, land bank, the policy which is happening, and of course the system of permits, etc., which have been introduced by the Director of Mines and Geology. Then of course we also would like to ensure that we provide a good social infrastructure and base around. So we are talking about manufacturing cities in Vada. We are also talking about manufacturing cities somewhere near Tumkur, or possibly near Tumkur or in North Karnataka for these units coming up. And of course tie up in terms of infrastructure is always being followed, I think. So in terms of investment activities, I think we also have placed a large amount of our hopes on a development of the steel industry as going to be generating the real kickstart for manufacturing in our state. And we do invite investors or anybody who has got, we could discuss with you on what is it that we could do to ensure that those investors who had come up for signing their projects or come up for investments, how we can assist you in making those projects happen. Thank you very much.